Hello, my name is Travis Balitz. Today we're going to do another episode called Let's Talk About It. I'm with Rebecca Erickson, and today it's going to be a particular session about two Korean adoptees with bipolar disorder. We both have bipolar 1 disorder. This is just going to be an impromptu about the awareness, the questions, the resources that might be beneficial for people that are new to the mental health field or new to people with mental illness and are looking for support or just want to hear stories about people with mental illness. So I'll get to it. So I'm pretty sure you're familiar with CAM Center, which you discussed about.
Mhm.
So what they did is that they did a study for 3 years of there's like maybe 20,000 KADs in Minnesota right now. And for that amount, maybe only 300 people actually responded to the survey. So I'm just curious, do you think adoptees just don't care? Do you think adoptees are just afraid to give out private information? Do you feel that most adoptees are just happy with their lives and just want to keep things private? What's your take on that?
Um, so the people that they sent the survey out to, were those people similar in some way? Do they have the same diagnosis?
No, they're just people that in general that it talks about like mental health resources that they know about. So they're just asking how familiar with mental health resources in Minnesota. And the idea behind it is just get your opinion on why so few many adoptees want to reach out when they might be in a mental health crisis. Is there any information that you know about that or studies or
I don't really know exactly like what's going on with the Korean adoptee community in Minnesota because I'm just not clued into that really. I don't really have very much access to all the information, but I would suspect that the reason why there's such a low response rate to that survey partly had to do with maybe limited like uh, it's not that they aren't interested, it's just that they probably are concerned about how they would look to others, maybe like maybe some peer pressure in a way. And then also maybe they're just distracted in their own lives, they're working a lot or they are in a tough relationship or they're having depression and something that's keeping them from picking up the laptop or picking up the phone and filling out that survey because that feels so much more difficult than just sitting and watching TV or sleeping.
okay.
Yeah.
So I just want to mention before we both have bipolar 1 disorder, so I'm going to ask a few questions about it. So basically when it comes to me, my diagnosis was pretty much clear cut because I was depressed. I took Paxil, and then maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, I ended up having a manic, like a drunken stupor, like something where you're really giddy, really happy, and the MD actually said that I was bipolar and was experiencing a manic reaction. So I've been like that since 2008. Do you think your diagnosis was clear cut like that, or do you believe that it was a lot harder than you think and the challenge of it was actually a lot younger? Because what I've learned is that bipolar disorder usually happens to people in their 20s to their later adulthood versus adolescence. Are you familiar with any of these studies, and
Yeah.
what is your belief on it?
Yeah, so in women, bipolar disorder and schizophrenia tend to happen when they're in their early 20s. For men, it's a little bit later. But as far as the age range goes and the age expectancy, for myself, I was spot on because I was diagnosed when I was 21. And that's exactly when most people with bipolar of the kind that I had, which is type 1 also. But for people who have it like more of on a genetic level, it seems to escalate and peak around age 20, 21, 22 for women. And I really believe that the bipolar that I have is primarily environmental, excuse me, not environmental. I meant to say biological, genetic. I know nothing about my family's health history, my birth mother's health history, or anything like that. But I suspect there was some bit of chaos going on in my birth family, because when I was born, and then in the orphanage, I was grossly underweight. And then the social worker said that I was malnourished and I had poor prenatal care when I was a baby, before I was born. So that makes me suspect that my birth mother was in situations that were probably not very nice. That most likely there was some kind of mental illness or something going on there.
Mm-hmm.
So I strongly believe that my mental illness is related to maybe my poor prenatal care, genetics, and then of course the trauma that I experienced as a child growing up in my adoptive home.
So that's really interesting, because I've always known that the bipolar disorder seems to peak in their 20s of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I've heard. And I think another question that I have for you is related to it, is that I've been on 8 different antipsychotics,
Mm-hmm.
and I had very tough issues trying to find the right medications, the right dose, the right amount, or the right concoction, you can say, the cocktail that you want to describe it as. Do you feel that medication overall can help people with mood disorders like depression, bipolar, schizoaffective, schizophrenia? Do you think medication like that could be beneficial?
I think it definitely could be for some individuals. Not everyone, honestly. Anyway, but I think that for some people, like self-medicating with alcohol and marijuana, or like CBD oil, which is like marijuana, things like that. Like for those people, I think like if it works for them and they're able to manage it really well, not like overdose or get crazy with it, then I think it might be better for them than something like Zoloft or Zyproxa or something, So there's pros and cons with every type of substance.
I guess that you mentioned marijuana. I've also read that marijuana in general, for some people, could induce psychosis. Do you believe in that?
I definitely think that some people with the types of mental illnesses like schizophrenia or schizoaffective, like they may be more susceptible to running into psychosis, because the marijuana might inhibit the types of the receptors in the brain basically, like, psychosis is kind of when your serotonin levels, or I'm sorry, I shouldn't say what I don't really know very well, but I know there's either serotonin, or norepinephrine, or dopamine, like one of those three. I don't remember which one is responsible for psychosis. I think it's dopamine, actually. But like if you have an overabundance of one of those neurotransmitters, it can actually spark a psychosis in some people. That's why people with Alzheimer's disease, that they have to actually take medication that increases that neurotransmitter, because they're actually lacking it. So anyway, but for people who already have an overabundance of those neurotransmitters, and then they smoke marijuana or take marijuana, then it would make sense that it would spark a psychosis.
So there's a lot of people with bipolar disorder that have PTSD, like you mentioned that you have that. There's been a study that like LCD or hallucinogenics might have a benefit to people with this disorder. Are you familiar with this research?
I am not familiar with that.
Okay.
No. Oh, DMT. Oh, I've heard it. Yeah, I've heard of DMT. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my question is this a new technology, or is it a new therapy for people with PTSD, or?
Well, that is something that is really cutting edge right now, actually. Okay. That's like just being explored right now, actually. Like right now. And there are some mental health professionals out there who advocate for the use of DMT and other molecules that are hallucinogenics to be used therapeutically similar to how medical marijuana would be used, in the same kind of light, And that is just like so cutting edge that there's not much information out there on it. But I myself, as a practitioner, I feel a little concerned about that, just because I think historically those drugs have not been used as medications for like pharmaceutical medications. They've been used as more of in a social manner or ritualistic or a spiritual environment. And I think if you take something that's like used ritualistically or spiritually or socially and try to, package it and customize it and turn it into something that's like a medical, prescribed medication, I think that some people could really run with that and use and abuse that medication. We already have enough abuse with painkillers. I could see that this hallucinogenics could run down that same path. But at the same time, depending on people's attitude towards those type of drugs and how it's marketed, I could see it turning out very well as well. So it really kind of depends on how it's assimilated into Western medicine, basically.
So if you think that there might be benefits, would you ever try that as experimentation, or are you
like me personally?
Yeah, because you have PTSD.
Well, I think that because a lot of my disorder is psychotic, I have psychosis, I think that would run a risk for me.
Okay.
But for someone who doesn't experience psychosis at all in their disorders, I would say, hey, if that was me, I would try it. But obviously, I'm not the best case for that. So.
Okay. Another question is, you mentioned you're on Zyproxa, correct?
No, I was.
Or you were. Excuse me. So the question I have. So the question I have to ask you is you said it worked for 9 years, correct?
Yep.
My question to you, I think, is it an older antipsychotic or?
It's actually it's not the first wave. It's like the second wave, and then there's like the third wave, which is the current, most recent drugs. So it's a little bit of like the second school.
Okay.
Yeah.
My biggest problem was Zyproxa, because I've been on a whole bunch of, you name it, I'm pretty sure I've been on it. My biggest problem with Zyproxa when I was in the hospital is that it caused me to sleep like 15, 16 hours. Did you experience a huge somnolence with that drug when you first took it?
Yes.
So I hated the feeling where I just felt like a zombie. It just made me feel terrible. I felt like, since I'm a creative individual, it was just killing all my moods, because I felt the mania was what drove the creativity in me. Do you feel that it inhibited you from doing what you usually were doing?
Yes, actually, when I was on Zyproxa, when I was discharged from the hospital, so I took a semester off from U of M, and then I went back in the fall, and at the time, I was studying music performance for clarinet, and I was so drugged down that my eye-hand coordination was so delayed, I couldn't play my instrument. I couldn't read the notes on the page and in my brain do the fingering on the clarinet, because it was so delayed cognitively for me. I couldn't play my music. I couldn't do my work as a music major. It was so hard. Yeah, it was terrible. And I also, like you, felt a loss of like a creativity or spark or of connection with God. I got extremely depressed on Zyproxa because I felt like the excitement and the connection I felt in my mania moments was gone, and I just felt like I had lost all purpose of life.
Why'd you stay on it 9 years? I guess I'm confused.
What was that?
Why'd you stay on it 9 years?
Because that was my experience of being on Zyproxa for the first
time,
like
basically.
2 years.
Yeah, I understand that.
The first 2 years it was like that.
Yeah, I was on Latuda. It took a while for me to get used to it, but I was just a zombie for like the first year, 2 years, and then after a while things clicked, and I don't really need to feel like I perform less, but I noticed that there's a huge difference.
Are you currently on Latuda?
Yes.
Okay.
So I've been on it since 2014, so maybe 6 years. It's a wonder drug for me. But you also mentioned What are you currently on an antipsychotic right now?
I'm currently on Risperidol.
That's
and that's like a wonder drug for me, actually.
Okay. I think there's a newer drug that Invega is similar to Risperdal in the same class. I was just curious, is there a reason why you chose Risperdal or your psychiatrist chose Risperdal?
I don't know. I don't know why they chose it, but they chose it.
Okay.
And I've been on that since 2017. Yeah.
Are you familiar with akathisia?
No.
I experienced akathisia, just restless in the legs, kind of like restless leg syndrome, but there's people that have actually committed suicide because the intensity got so bad. So I experienced that when I was on Risperdal. I just feel you're pretty lucky to not experience it because it's pretty common on that type of drug.
Oh, wow.
And Abilify caused it, and Vega caused it because it's in the same class, but there are a numerous amount of antipsychotics that induce that type of illness or whatever. So another option that I heard, have you heard of tardive dyskinesia?
Yeah, it's tardive
have
dyskinesia. Yeah.
Have you ever experienced that?
No, I have not.
Do you know patients that experience that?
No, I have never met anyone.
Yeah, I haven't met anyone either, so I was just curious how prevalent it is because there's actually a commercial on it right now, but I don't know if people experience it or not because I'm not familiar with it. Anyways, let's see. You're also on Lamictal, correct?
Well, so I was on Lamictal from 2012 until 2019. No, 2008. I think it was 2018. And the reason I went off Lamictal, I was very sad to go off it because it worked so well.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason why I went off Lamictal is because I made the connection that it was interacting with a lot of foods I was eating.
Is that the one that you had
causing the migraines?
Oh,
yeah.
I see.
So I went off that pretty quickly. But basically, for some reason, I don't know why, but I think it had something to do with the fact that there were some MOA inhibitors in there. But when I was on Lamictal, and even when I went off Lamictal, if I ate any foods that contained the amino acid called tyramine, which is in like everything, it's in like banana, chocolate, cheese, all cheese, wine, avocados. I mean, it's in like just so many foods, natural foods. If I would eat any of those foods, I would get this terrible migraine, which led me to feeling suicidal because it was just so awful. I wanted to die. So but even though I went off Lamictal when I was, when it was 2018, it took about a good year and a half to get out of my liver and out of my system entirely. So I stopped getting the migraines in winter or spring of 2019.
My question is regarding that, why on it so long if you did not find out till later?
Migraines? I didn't start getting migraines until 2017. And I didn't figure out that it was the drug until I found out it was probably 2017 I got off the drug. But I found out like maybe 6 months after I started getting the migraines. And I thought it was like I didn't know what was happening to me. I was having seizures. But yeah, as soon as I figured out it was the drug, I was like, oh, I'm getting off this. And then I wanted my body to purify and get it out of my system completely.
If you didn't have those migraines, I feel like Lamictal's kind of wonderful. It doesn't cause weight gain. You don't need a toxicology test like lithium. And the only downside is you got to go up slow because it could cause a rash, the Steven Johnson rash, and it could be fatal. But I've had some really good coursework with Lamictal and I'm pretty happy with it. So originally I was on lithium, but I wanted to really work out because I'm really fitness. But if you sweat too much, it can cause you to be very toxic with the salt that's in it. So he switched me to Lamictal the first time I tried it up in the hospital because I just was suicidal and I felt that the lithium was going to happen. And later I felt like didn't feel good about myself, and then decided to risk it and go up on a higher dose, increase my, which is ironic. I also want to mention I'm also on an antidepressant, which is kind of the irony with someone with bipolar disorder, you think. But I think the stabilization happens with the Lamictal and the antipsychotic Latuda, and then if it kind of makes me a little bit depressed since I have bipolar depression. So I feel this Involta has helped stabilize my mood. Have you ever tried a concoction with antidepressant before?
Yeah, actually, I'm on kind of similar to you. I have bipolar depression as well. So, and that depressive part of my bipolar didn't really start coming into play until about 2017. But I'm on Zoloft. I take a very small I take the lowest dose possible of Zoloft, and I'm on lithium right now. And I'm on a low dose of lithium, and then I'm on a low dose of risperidone.
Okay, so what, maybe 300 milligrams of lithium, or that's the lowest dose I
I'm
know
on 900 milligrams lithium.
That's average. I wouldn't say that's
Oh,
low.
really? I thought it was low.
Like the highest I was on was 4 pills, 1200, and it was 4 pills. How many pills are you taking?
3 pills.
Yeah, average, I would say, but it can go a little bit higher. I guess, do you have to take toxicology tests when...
Only in the beginning.
Okay.
And then once every like 6 months or something like that, you know.
Are you aware that you have to be pretty hydrated with the drug?
I drink a lot of water.
You just have to, the thing is, if you want to get into exercise, you just have to be very careful because
Yeah.
it'd be very toxic to your body if you develop that I don't know, if you just over-exercise, you can say.
Yeah. And I was doing a lot of exercise earlier this spring and summer, outside actually, like going for walks for 12 miles long, like exercising for 4 hours at a time, like outside in the heat. And I noticed that after those days, I would be out for like a day and a half. Like I just have to sleep all day and the next day. And I'm like, what is going on with me? And at the same time, I was vegan too, so I thought it was the lack of iron. But I was taking iron supplements, and I'm like, this doesn't make sense. I should be just fine. And I completely blanked that it was probably just dehydration.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started realizing all that, then I started taking Pedialyte, and then I was fine.
Are you familiar with the drug Depakote? It's another mood stabilizer.
I can't take Depakote.
Are you allergic?
I'm allergic to it.
Yeah, me too. Like,
really?
Yeah. That's why the second time I went on it, it was just swollen my throat, so
Yeah.
I had a hard time breathing. I don't know, what was your reaction?
I had a rash.
Oh, okay. Were
It
you
was going
aware?
down my
Were you
mouth.
aware it was the Depakote or no?
Yeah, well, actually, I went on Depakote when I was first time in the hospital in
Okay.
2003.
Okay.
They put me on Depakote, and I started getting a rash on my face. I thought it was acne, but it was actually a rash. And then the rash started going in my mouth. And then they immediately, when they checked that, they immediately took me off Depakote like that. Because that rash, if it goes down into your mouth, you can die. So
Regarding lithium, again, I don't know if you knew it, but it's a pretty old drug.
it is very old.
And it's been a gold standard when it came to treating
Bipolar.
So I've been on it maybe 5 or 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
Thought it worked really well. Helped with sleep. What was your opinion on how it works right now?
Well, I went on lithium for the first time in 2009. And, or 2010, excuse me. And I didn't like it because it actually made me gain a lot of weight.
Oh, that's another reason why I went off it.
Yeah.
But you just had to be really careful.
Yeah. It made me gain a lot of weight, and I was really insecure about my body at that time. So I was like, I'm not doing this drug. So I went off. I was only on it for like maybe a month, and then I went off. And then I went back on it again like about last spring, I think. Or no, spring of 2019. Or sometime around there. I can't remember exactly when. But I gained the weight again. But instead of just jumping to conclusions and getting off it again, I decided to just keep trying it. And so I changed my lifestyle around, worked on becoming vegan and exercising more and drinking more water and just getting more sleep and doing all the things. And I've been able to, I am overweight from the lithium. I've gained about 40 pounds or 50 pounds since being on.
I gained about 50. I actually lost 50 in the last 15 months.
Wow.
It was
That's awesome.
hardcore, like 10,000, 20,000 steps a day.
Jeez.
So it's like 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
I'm a pacer, so when
Yeah.
I'm bored, I pace a lot. So that's the
Oh,
reason why
yeah.
I lost so much weight. But regarding lithium, is there a reason why your psychiatrist never just increased the risperidone or the antipsychotic versus putting you on a drug.
Well, like my doctor and I talked about doing that, you know, but we tried increasing the risperidone a little bit, and I would get sleepy.
Oh yes.
And I didn't want to deal with the sleepiness. I actually wanted to deal more with the waking than the sleepiness, believe it or not. Most women would be like, hell no, I'm not going to gain weight. I'll be sleepy, you know, but I can't stand the sleepiness. So I chose the lithium. So it all works well together. I feel like I'm on a pretty good mix of things.
I think the benefit isn't necessarily your physical health, but mental health is really important when it comes to people with mental illness.
Yeah.
So I just feel like it might be a sacrifice, but if you're pretty happy right now and content and managing your mental illness, there's no such thing as a cure, as you know. But if you're managing, I think that's a good pat on the back for the day.
Yeah, definitely.
So, anyways, let's see. Is there any questions you have for me regarding bipolar disorder, or I'm just curious?
So how old were you when you were diagnosed?
21.
And how old are you now?
33, so it was 12, 13 years ago.
Wow.
So I've been on it for, like I said, I was at school and I had this manic reaction, and that happened in 2008. So let's see, it's 12 years. I've had some rough patches, so that's another thing. Let's talk about resources. How many hospitalizations have you had?
Oh gosh, let me see here. I think about 7.
Yeah, same here. I've had quite a few. 2 in 2009, a few in 2014, 15, and then 17.
Yeah.
So I've had quite a few ring around the rosy when it comes to hospitalizations.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting because if you have your own business, aren't you making too much money to be on medical assistance, or do you have Blue Cross Blue Shield? My curiosity is if you're not on MA, it must be outrageous for hospitalization prices. Is that correct?
Well, I actually contacted medical assistance or MNsure about my income change, and they refused to take me off MA.
Oh, I see. So
they said due to the pandemic, people that are before the pandemic began, if they were on MA, everything is going to stay the same, even if they have an increase in.
Oh, that's great. Do you have
income.
a spend down or?
No.
Oh wow, I have a spend down already.
Yeah, I have nothing.
Are you also on SSDI? Or?
No, I'm not. I'm straight MA. No, I'm on MA and Health Partners.
Oh, I see. Okay,
so
that could be different. I'm not sure about that. I'm just on straight MA. So.
No, I'm not. I'm on MNsure. I'm on but yeah. So basically, and I was very honest with them, and I said I can produce paychecks and the whole shebang. You know, they're like, sure, send us that information, but it's really not going to change anything about your health insurance, at least during the pandemic. And I was like, okay.
Have you had issues with insurance when it came to?
Never.
Okay. Another question is, have you ever had partial hospitalizations?
Yes.
At Regions, Abbott.
I had partial at Abbott twice.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was your benefit in that, or did you not find a benefit?
It was okay. It was more for the social benefits, I guess. Like when I was first diagnosed in 2003 and then was hospitalized for a month, then after I was discharged, I went straight to partial for another month. And during that time, that was really, really, really important for me because I didn't even know what mental health was. Like, I didn't know anything about it. And it was just extremely important that I go to that partial hospital program. But then I went back to partial in, I'm blanking on when. I think it was like maybe 2016 or something. And the same woman that was there when I was young was there still, and she remembered me when I came in. She's like, "Oh, you're back." She's like, "It's been a long time."
So how long was it? 3 weeks too, or?
That was 3 weeks.
Yeah, same here. That must be all around the board as standard. I've had 2 partial hospitalizations. The funny story with the first one is I was starting lithium, but I wanted to play this game called Burnout, so I ended up getting discharged early because I didn't show up. I guess at the first time I didn't really care.
Yeah.
I really didn't care that I had bipolar. I didn't want to get out if you experienced that, but I was in denial. I didn't want to deal with it. So my way was just playing video games. So what about you? Did you experience the seriousness, or did you kind of fluff it off, or you knew right away you had to get it solved?
Well, my parents have had a huge influence on my life, and I'm extremely impressionable. To this day, I am.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very easily influenced. I don't know if I should be saying that. But my parents basically said, like when I was diagnosed, they were like, you have this illness now for the rest of your life. So because you're disabled, we're going to take care of your rent and your groceries and take care of, you don't have to pay for this and that. And they kind of like enabled me with money, financial stuff and stuff like that, all the way up until recently. So they've been enabling me with like financial things.
You never applied that Social Security disability?
Nope, didn't have to. My parents have enough money that they were able to just give me money.
Oh, I see.
So
Did you find that a benefit or a crutch?
it was a crutch, big time.
Okay.
Because it glued me to my parents. They were just basically saying, if you take your meds, and if you do well in school, and if you pursue a career, and if you get married, or do this and this and this, everything that we expect you to, we will take care of your expenses. And so it was a manipulative kind of way of living. And that's another reason why I decided to just, kind of say goodbye to my family.
Are you familiar with IRTSs or group homes?
Yes, I was in one.
How long? 90 days? I was also in one.
IRTS. No,
yeah.
I wasn't. No, I'm sorry. I wasn't in one. No, I was in a I was in a
Was it considered a group home or?
No, it was a I was in a residence, or I was in a residence, or excuse me, I'm blanking. Sorry. I was there for a week. It was a crisis residence.
Oh, crisis house, basically.
A crisis house through gosh, I'm having problems remembering. Through People Incorporated.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Yeah.
I don't know if did you do that painting or is that?
Nope.
Oh, I was just curious if you're artistically creative because
No.
People Incorporated have this thing for artists that they draw or do things, and there's this yearly get together where they showcase their art and sell it for
Artability.
Yes, I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Well, I was actually a manager of a group home.
Okay.
And one of my residents that lived in the home,
it's great for artists.
In that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I have never done that. I'm actually not a visual artist. I'm a musician.
Me too.
Yeah.
I played piano since 3rd grade and I compose music. I have like 120 tracks. I sing, rap, compose piano tracks, compose orchestration. I don't make money from it, but I'm really passionate about it.
Cool.
And back in the day, I would always complain to my MD that he'd say it's the music that's causing my illness, not the bipolar. But I also associated with it because I'd be up late doing music, and then I always associated with my creative thing. Did you ever experience that? No, it's just this creative energy I have. It's not mania.
Yeah.
It's
actually like Carl Jung. Have you heard of Carl Jung?
Mm-mm.
He's a psychologist back in kind of around Freud's time. This is like 1800s Vienna. Anyway, Carl Jung came up with a theory. He called it the creative illness. And he himself experienced it. That's why he came up with it. But one day, I don't remember what he was doing, but he was writing in his journal, and he said he suddenly was struck with a creative illness that put him in a deep depression for days, where all he could do was sleep and drink wine and sleep and cry and write and write and write and write feverishly. Write like essays and stuff. And he said that when he came out of his creative illness, he realized, and at the time he didn't call it creative illness, he called it creative illness afterwards. But he said at the time he realized that people who are very creative, as in writers, poets, musicians, artists, that at some point in their creative history, they go through some type of deep spell, emotional spell, where they get in touch with a wounded part of themselves in which their art saves them.
Do you still play music or no?
No.
Oh.
I should. I really need to. But basically, their art pulls them out of their illness, their depression, their sadness, and through the creative process of doing their art, whether that be writing or whatever, that energy is what actually like relieves them and lives them, brings them up again out of their depression. But they have to go into the depression in the first place to touch that deep pain and spark that deep creativity, which then brings them out of the depression. So that cycle is called the creative illness.
Is that actually a scientific illness, or is it just something made?
It's just Carl Jung. He just wrote about it.
Oh.
But I remember when I was in school studying marriage and family therapy, I read that in one of my textbooks, and I thought, that is so cool.
Mm-hmm. It also works vice versa, because when I'm in my creative energy, it's great, but then when I have writer's block, I do nothing, and I get into depression.
That's your creative illness.
Yeah, yeah.
Whenever I'm depressed about anything, and I start playing clarinet, then I'm not depressed anymore. It's like after.
Do you still play, or is it just?
No, not
What
really.
is your way to cope with depression and
usually exercise or baking.
Okay, sounds good.
Cooking.
I do a lot of exercise too, maybe over exercise, but are you seeing a psychiatrist regularly, or?
Yep.
Okay.
And a therapist.
Okay, me too. So let's get back to housing. So you said you had a crisis center. Me, I had a 90-day IRTS, a group home. Were you always living with your parents at the time, or how did you associate with getting independence versus?
I moved out of my parents' home when I was 18, and I moved into the dorms at U of M and went to school there. And then when I graduated from U of M, I lived on my own. I lived by myself in a studio apartment in Dinkytown, and then from that moving forward, I moved to Uptown and lived in Uptown off and on for 10 years. Lived in Korea for some time, moved back, lived on the south side, and then just moved all around, living with roommates, living by myself. I've been on my own since I was 18.
So I assume your parents didn't financially support you when it came to living on your own, or
sometimes they did.
Oh, they sometimes did. Did you ever fear that you'd never be able to take care of yourself? Because I guess my fear was I guess I'm kind of a bad person because I never moved out of my dad's home.
That's not bad.
But I saved money, so that's the reason. And I was just curious, what made you feel like you wanted to always live on your own, and you didn't want your illness to define who you are, and you able to manage the bad times in spite not giving up? What forced you, or gave you meaning when it came to living on your own and independency?
Well, living on my own was absolutely a survival need because of what was going on in my house when I was a teenager and also as a child. So the first moment that I could actually get away from my parents was like extremely important to me. So I chose to live on my own. They didn't kick me out. They wanted me to still live there. And I'm like, hell no, I'm leaving. So I left as soon as I possibly could. And that's also why I've never moved back in with my parents. So I've always just been very independent from them in that way. But I've been dependent on them financially and emotionally up until yesterday when I decided I'm going to take a 2-year break from my entire family, as in no contact, no talking, nothing, for until July 23rd, 2022.
You should ask her if she still has love for her parents, even despite the complications.
My brother's asking if you still have love for your parents in spite all the complications you've been experiencing with them.
Absolutely.
That's good.
I absolutely love my parents and my whole family, everyone, 100%. The guy that I was dating, that he and I were thinking of getting married, I still love him too, as a good friend. But I'm ready to just focus on myself for right now.
This is kind of an offshoot question, but was there a time where you were in seeking a relationship and you're afraid to disclose your illness?
Yes.
Were you fearful that they reject you, not understand you? And if they did understand you, were they open to your illness and willing to support you emotionally, physically, spiritually?
Well, I always feel a little apprehensive of talking about my bipolar.
Are you ever embarrassed?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm embarrassed because I don't feel like I'm ashamed. I don't feel like I'm a person who is someone to be shamed of. But I always feel a little uncomfortable about their family, the person's family.
So my question is have you disclosed any of that with the family when it came to relationships, or slowly warm up to them, or ignore that altogether, or keep it private, or?
There's only been a couple families, people I've dated that their parents have known, and those were very significant relationships.
Okay.
Like one of them was with this one guy that I was with for 3 years. We were going to get married, and I ended it because I had no romantic feelings for him, but his whole family knew about me. And they accepted that about me because he himself, my partner, he had major depression and was suicidal. So we shared that common understanding. And actually, I saw him to the hospital once. Like, I took him to the hospital. But anyway, you know, it seems like everyone I've had a relationship with, except for just a few, have experienced either the exact same disorder as me, or depression or anxiety or something chronic like that. So there's generally not too much of a fear of being judged because they kind of know already that like they have experienced something similar. So I'm not too worried about that, but it's more I'm worried about their family. Like, how is your mom going to feel about you dating a girl who has bipolar and almost committed suicide? You know what I mean? Just because it looks bad, you know? Because I trust my partner. I trust that he's going to understand me, although, you know, but I don't know about the other people. So
How'd you reveal this in Korea? Because there's someone I know that was a teacher too, but she couldn't say that she was depressed because then she might be denied being a teacher there. Did you experience that in Korea, or?
I told my co-teacher and my principal of the school where I taught that I had bipolar, and they had never heard of it. They didn't know what it was. So I didn't lie at all to them. I just told them exactly what it was. And they were like, and I said, "Is this disorder?" And they thought it was a physical disease. They thought I had some kind of like heart condition or something like that. And so they actually like let me go from my employment because I was so traumatized from Korea. Like, I wasn't eating. I basically had hardly eaten anything for 2 months while I was there. I lost 22 pounds in 2 months and just got really sick.
Was this before bipolar?
This is
or
let me think.
after?
When was this? This was after bipolar.
Oh, it was, okay.
So I was diagnosed in 2003. I went to Korea in 2007.
Oh, so that's much later. So
Yeah.
you were probably well within your mental health already.
Yeah.
So I guess another question is that, are you aware that the suicide rate is really high in Korea, or you didn't even know that?
Is that among Korean people or Korean adoptees?
Just Korean natives that live in Korea. It's really high. It's probably one of the highest that in relationship to Japan. They have a really high suicide rate. So I don't know if you knew that.
I wasn't aware.
Yeah, but it's really bad there, and I think their mental, like as you stated, people didn't know what bipolar disorder was. You can imagine how stigmatized people in Korea are when it came to mental health. So I hope my future is not only do adoptees understand mental health, but people in Korea are more open to it because it could save lives there too. Anyways, do you think bipolar affected your relationships, or do you feel it was just differences? Like,
I definitely think that my bipolar and my illness affected my relationships. Like, I undoubtedly think that. Or something. I think that, but I think what affected my relationships more was my attachment disorders. That was far more negative impact on the relationship.
One of my friends kind of made this term called adoption disorder. Do you feel adoption played a role in any of your mental health, or not really? It was just genetics that came with your environment.
Do you mean like the placement, the adoption placement?
Yeah, all that trauma. Is that?
Yes.
Do you think that's related to?
I definitely think that.
Okay. So
For sure.
adoption disorder exists, and I don't know.
Well, I definitely think that it was traumatic for me. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not the only one that thinks that.
Yeah.
In fact, some people think so negatively about it. There's people think that adoption is considered child
abuse?
child trafficking. I don't know
Oh,
if you heard
child
that.
trafficking.
Yeah, that's how serious some
Wow.
people think.
I actually probably should have asked you during the human stories, but that's okay.
Regarding stereotypes, do you think people in general judge us with mental health issues as bad people, or do you think it's getting better?
Do you mean like people as an adoptees judge us, or
Just
like
generally, because there's this group called Korean Adoptee. Are you familiar with KAWA? It's a Facebook group, and
KAWA?
yeah, and we've been mentioned in there saying that we're mentally ill and that we abuse women and things like that. So
You guys?
yeah.
I don't think we should put this on copy.
Why not? It's true though.
Oh, that's true.
That
But
they say that you abuse women?
Yeah, that's what they think. I don't know why.
What?
Yeah, it's pretty horrible.
You
what
don't
they-
come across as that to me, believe me.
But that's what they think. So there's
I don't know if you've seen our crazy post. We wear thongs.
but
Just a shock people.
there's this we have humor, but people take it wrong. So I'm just curious if you think there's people that judge you to this day when it comes to your mental health. Or is it pretty good where people actually accept you?
I don't feel judged. No, I
Okay.
generally don't feel judged. I guess if I feel judged at all, it's within white people, not
Oh,
other
I
Korean
see.
people.
Okay, that's good because were you ever? I guess one thing that Kafe forgot to mention: were you ever bullied as a child or no?
No.
Oh, so you grew up in a diverse area or a white area? Or
I grew up in a white area of a diverse city.
Oh, I see.
So are you guys familiar with Southwest Minneapolis?
No.
Okay, so Southwest Minneapolis is like the rich part of Minneapolis.
Oh.
I guess you could say.
I thought you said you weren't rich though. That's why I got confused.
Well, like we're not like rich, but like
Oh.
there's people in my family that are rich.
Oh, I see.
mean, not rich. Well, I can't describe it. Okay, we're definitely not poor. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
But like, basically, my neighborhood growing up was in a very
Wealthy area.
upper middle class, like nice area. Are you guys familiar with Lake Harriet, or Lake Calhoun, Lake of the Isles?
They were gonna change the name of it because it was too.
They changed the name of Lake Calhoun, and now it's called Lake Makaska.
Yeah, because it sounds more Native American or something.
Well, Lake Calhoun was actually the name of this like white captain dude that like murdered and like raped a bunch
Oh,
of
I
people.
see. Oh,
But yeah, so like so Lake Harriet is actually connected to a little part of Minneapolis called Linden Hills, and that's like a cute touristy neighbory kind of place where there's like a bunch of rich people that live around the lake. And I grew up in that neighborhood area, but I wouldn't say that my family is wealthy by any means, but we were surrounded.
They just pretend to be wealthy,
They
right?
just pretend to be, and they were we were surrounded by wealth.
Oh, I see. So you must have went to a really nice school then.
Well, I went to a public school, but there was an honors program that I was in, and all the kids that went to the honors program were from white families that lived around the lakes. But then the non-honors kids, you know, the regular population of the school were like all the people of color who were just in the really shitty apartments. They were in the really bad classes that the education wasn't as good. So it was almost as if you had like a elite part of the school, which was all whitewashed, and then you had everyone else, and you only saw the two people when you're crossing each other in the halls, but you would never have classes with them. So I didn't really see people of color growing up.
So would you say you're part of the white class? Is that what
Yes,
your
I was part of
privilege
the white-
maybe?
Yes,
Okay.
I would say that.
Okay. So I guess that relates to it, kind of ties in. Do you think you maybe had mental health issues before you were officially diagnosed with bipolar?
Yes.
Or can you describe that a little bit on what happened? And
Well,
if it wasn't bullying, I assume it was something else. Maybe the abuse that you mentioned.
the
But
abuse, but I probably would say that like I've always been a really hyperactive child.
ADHD type or
Yep, ADHD
okay.
type, and just have a lot of energy,
Mhm.
like just like tons of energy. and I was just all over the board, just jumping all around all the time and stuff. And I also couldn't shut up. I was talking all the time. I remember being in grade school or middle school or something. No, grade school. I was in grade school, and there was this poor boy that was sitting next to me in class. And I was like, blah, 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 and talking to him constantly. And he was trying to do his homework. And I was just sitting there talking to him. And finally, he just turned his chair away from me. And then the teacher came, and she put me in a corner in timeout because I was distracting other students. Because I was just talking and talking and talking and talking.
Were you a good student, you think? You did really well?
I was a good student.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, in my master's, I had a 3.98 GPA.
Oh, that's nice. Were you ever on the dean's list, or?
I don't know. No.
Oh, that's pretty close, though.
Yeah, it's pretty close. Yeah, at U of M, my undergrad, I had a 3.5 GPA. So.
Were you also good in high school, or?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I was too. I was like in the
You were you
valedictorian.
valedictorian?
Yeah, it's just or salutatorian. Excuse me.
Oh, so
Top 10. Yeah.
Good for you. Yeah, I was.
But I
a good
just
student.
studied hard. I was not smart, and I'm not smart to this day.
Why do you guys think you're not smart?
Because we had no street smarts. Because that's what it takes
Oh,
to
you mean
live.
being out in the city?
Because we're really just awkward when we were growing up, so we just studied, and I don't know. I still ended up with bipolar. It doesn't even matter.
Do you guys live in the where do you
Hastings.
live? You live in Hastings right now.
Are you familiar with Hastings? or
I've
no?
driven through it.
Yeah, they have a nice bridge now. They just built it maybe a couple
Cool.
years ago.
Travis, before you end it, I want you to ask her. There's a lot of Korean adoptees or people in general that are afraid to ask for help, and ask her if she has any advice for people that are afraid to go to the hospital or anything.
Yeah, what do you say? I know someone
Yeah.
that doesn't want to admit or takes no proactivity when it comes to her mental health, or not her. I say that their mental health. So, what can you say to people that refuse to get help, refuse to take care of themselves, and just are reluctant to essentially get help when they need it? Is there any advice for them that you have for people that struggle? But
Well, I definitely think that if you take a person who doesn't want to seek out help, and clearly they need help. Clearly they need help, but their resistance to people helping them, the worst thing you can do is keep trying to shove help in down their throats, because they're just going to become more and more resistant. So, I have advice for their loved ones. The advice I would have for their loved ones is to let that person be, and just accept them for who they are. So usually when people are showing out their trauma or their pain, it's not very pretty. So they might be yelling or crying a lot or tearing their house apart or whatever. That makes their loved ones uncomfortable because it's not fun to see. It's hard to watch your loved one, your parent, your relative, your spouse, or fall apart, right? We feel so bad for them. But really, us trying to change them and do things for them is not about them. It's about us trying to soothe ourselves and making us feel less uncomfortable. So essentially we're kind of, I wouldn't say using the ill person, but we're
enabling?
we're not enabling.
Oh.
We're just not taking care of ourselves.
Oh.
So I guess what can be best done is if you can just accept that person for who they are, where they are at that time in their life, and trust that they'll be okay.
Do you have any suggestion for there's with mental health issues, there's suicide. Is there anything yet you can say about people of loved ones that had a family member or friend commit suicide? Is there anything that you can help them to cope with it, or so they feel less guilty? Should they blame themselves, or?
Well, first of all, there is no blame with suicide.
Okay.
I really don't. I really think that people get wrapped up in this whole thing. It's whose fault? Someone's fault.
Mm-hmm.
That person who took their life,
Mm-hmm.
that was their decision,
Mm-hmm.
and that's their responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they're dead, they still need to. I mean, that's their choice.
Mm-hmm.
If it was our responsibility at all, that would be a murder, right? So so obviously, it's not your responsibility for someone else's death if they choose their life
Mm-hmm.
to take their life.
Mm-hmm.
So for a parent or someone that feels like, oh, I wasn't a good parent enough, I wasn't a good enough parent, or I was too harsh on them for this, that, they need to really come to peace with themselves and forgive themselves. And remember all the things about the person that passed away, all the things that they loved about that person, and all the things that brought joy to that person, also what that person brought to them. And think about the beautiful things and the wonderful, lovely things, and kind of stop getting so hung up and try to let go of all the regret and the negative feelings and thoughts where you somehow feel like you had to do something or something could have been done, or that it's your responsibility, because really the only person's responsibility for the death of a person who commits suicide is their own. And that's not a harsh penalty or a way to say they deserve to commit suicide. I'm just saying that they chose that, and we have to respect their choice, because that's what they felt was best for them, and we have to respect them.
Yeah, the reason why I mentioned this, Kyle's been really struggling with blaming himself for me being suicidal, and it stresses him out, stresses my family out, and I guess it's the reason why I mention it, but I really like your response.
Yeah.
Another thing is, have you heard of DBSA or NAMI, or you're not familiar with those?
DBSA, I've never heard.
Depression Bipolar Alliance, or DBA, or Depression Bipolar Alliance.
Schizophrenia Alliance?
No, I don't know. It's Depression Bipolar Alliance, and there's NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness. Have you?
Yeah, actually, I volunteer for NAMI.
Oh, really? Because we go on the walk every year, but they're not having it this year, so I don't know if you ever participated.
Yeah,
in
I've
it.
gone on the walks.
Okay, great.
But yeah, I volunteer for NAMI. I'm a speaker
That's
for
great.
them.
Oh, really?
Yep. I do
So,
public speaking for them.
do you know the lady that helped us, Kyle, or?
No, I can't remember her name.
Yeah, some lady helped us when we went to some type of, I don't know, what is that suicide awareness thing we went to, that program or that little session? Do you know what I'm?
Yeah, we went to like a NAMI program where, like suicide prevention. I can't remember what it's called. Maybe you're familiar with it. I don't know if you know it.
Well, I know that NAMI hosts many different types of classes and support groups for like many different people. You know, for family to family, they have a program called Family to Family. They have groups for teens, groups for people, LGBTQ people, just like, so many different resources and groups for people. And I've been to a number of those groups before, support groups. Yeah, they have just a wealth of resources and information and everything.
QPR, Travis.
Oh, I'm not sure what that means. Quality.
Or something. Response, something. Procedure. Something like that.
Okay. So another question I have is, what was I gonna say? For people that have a mental illness and they just, they're in that day where they don't want to do anything, or depressed, or just feel like their life isn't worth it. Do you have personal experience on what they could do to manage their symptoms, or just?
Yeah, definitely. I've definitely experienced those days. And I would say for a person that's feeling that way, it's good to reach out. But if they feel like they can't reach out because of the depression, like all they want to do is just sleep or like sit in their bed or something, I think the next step, if you can't reach out, the next step is to be as gentle with yourself as possible. So to do things, if they have coping skills, do the coping skills. If they don't know any coping skills, if they don't have any, then simply just give themselves a hug and tell them that they're going to be okay. And to just really be very still with themselves, try to clear their mind, do some deep breathing. And I think that's in the situation that there is no one to reach out to, or they feel like they can't reach out. But if they can reach out, I would say call a crisis line, call family, call friends, go for a walk, be in a public place if they can. I know the pandemic, but if they can, go to a coffee shop, read a book, do some writing. There's so many things that can be done. But I think what's most important if they're feeling suicidal is to surround themselves with people. Because suicidal situations are less common when they're surrounded by a bunch of people. Whereas if they're by themselves at home with exposure to all sorts of harmful things,
Mhm.
they're more likely to actually act on a suicide attempt or something
Mhm.
like that.
So another question relates to this. Have you heard of DBT? Dialectical
Yes.
behavior.
Yes.
Do you promote it? Do you
I was
do
in
it or training or?
Yeah, I was in a DBT class for a bit of time, and I've taught DBT, and practiced DBT on myself.
Mhm.
But it's been a while since I've done all of that because
Mhm.
I'm not against it. I just haven't been doing that for a
Mhm.
long time. But there was definitely a time, probably around 2013, 2012, that I was doing a lot of DBT with my clients, a lot of DBT going, like I said, going to a DBT group
Mhm.
and all that. So,
Okay, so there's this term called non-judgmental stance, and there's loved ones that say quit feeling that way, snap out of it. Do you think that's harmful for someone with a mental illness?
absolutely.
What's a better way for them to? There's this thing called the hell. I'm thinking of a word. It's not. It starts with an R.
Resilience?
No. There's this term in DBT. I can't think of it. Just if you know something, I'm trying to think of it, but it's not non-judgmental. It's not judgmental. It's something the opposite. Trying to think what that word. I know when there's a term for it, and I can't think of it.
Yeah, I don't know. But basically, people who, I've had people tell me to snap out of it before. And it's like, I think they do that because those people feel helpless.
It's so important. I realize the word it's validate versus victify or vilify or something. And
No, I mean, the people that tell you to snap out of it, they feel helpless. Because you presenting your emotions and all that triggers helpless feeling in them. So they don't like that. So they just want you to snap out of it because they don't want to see you in that state. And it's not a disgusting kind of thing. They're not like, oh, you disgust me. It's not like that. It's more that they just can't deal with their own feelings. So they're trying to change you so that they feel better.
So what's a good way for them to validate their feelings? Is there anything they could do instead of saying those hurtful things?
I think what they need to do is to step aside themselves. Like their uncomfortable feelings, they need to pardon them, literally pardon them. Say, this is not about me right now. This is about the person I love who's suffering. So instead of me telling them to change, I'm going to just accept them for who they are. So when my spouse or sister, brother is freaking out, crying, and all that, instead of me saying, oh, stop crying, be quiet, calm down. Instead, I'm going to just let them do what they need to do to process whatever they're processing. I'm going to just simply quietly support them. Maybe if I'm with them, put my arm around them and hold them while they do their emoting. And when that person's done, then we can talk about what's going on with them.
So is there any questions you want to add, Carl? Or is there any questions you want to talk to me about, like any information?
I'm actually kind of curious. Like, what is this for?
I don't know. I just
It's for it's mainly for GiDE, but we want more KADs to be more vocal about mental health and awareness. Because there's just a lot of KADs that.
Because I feel that if there's people that hear it, they're more willing to talk about and they'll familiarize themselves with other people, and they might think, oh, I'm bipolar, or I have mental illness. Oh, I should maybe consider getting help, or maybe I just feel like, well, I might be bipolar, or I might have this mental illness, but I'd like to learn more about it. And I think sharing the experiences could really help other people that might be suffering.
Yeah, I'm not like against anything at all. I was just kind of wondering. I'm like, we've been talking for a long time. Is this all gonna be on like?
It's
line?
2 separate long videos. We loaded a video that was 1.5 hours, so.
I'm like, is this all gonna be on the website? I'm totally cool with everything being on the website. Don't get me wrong. I'm totally cool with it because however, like what I say or just my insights, if they help people, like please, I want it to be out there. But if I'm just rambling, you guys cut everything. I'm fine with that too. So
I'm pretty open to it. I really like to keep things not raw, but
On the edge.
Not edge, it's just honest versus
Yeah.
someone that lies and sugarcoat things.
Sure,
'Cause
sure.
there's a lot of parents that sugarcoat adoption. There's a lot of adoptees that just feel absolutely fierce about it.
Right, right.
So I'm trying to get a non-judgmental and just not get my personal opinion, but just get other people to talk about their experiences.
Sure.
So that's kind of my main goal, and a lot of it is a little my personal goal too, because I feel talking about it is kind of my own therapeutic way to connect with other people that might suffer the same experiences that I have, and it's just a way to maybe have the community get in touch with other people that are similar to us. So
Sure.
that's kind of my idea.
I'm totally supportive of that for sure.
Is there anything else you want to add, or any personal questions that you might ask, or is it pretty good? So my next question is related to bipolar. We're identical twins. We may not look like it. How is it possible that I'm bipolar and he's just not? I don't.
Well, the
do you
thing
know
is,
any twin
well,
studies, or I'm
bipolar-
just
so
curious?
Yeah, because bipolar in some cases is genetic, which I think
Yeah.
in your case. So I don't know how the genes are in your biological parents.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that both parents did not have bipolar.
Oh, they didn't.
Did not.
How's that? How do I have it then?
Well, because you probably have. It was probably carried down by some type of gene, either dominant or recessive, and you
Oh.
have the
Both recessive
yeah
genes.
or something like that. I don't know.
Oh.
You'd have to get a DNA test of your biological parents and figure it
Oh,
out.
yeah. The thing is, I don't know if did Kyle tell you a little bit about our birth family, or?
No.
So we wrote a letter in 2009. It wasn't till, 2009. It wasn't until like maybe 8 years later we went to Pyeongchang Olympics, and it was really fun because we get to see the snowboarder. He was famous, and I can't remember his name. Sean White. So that was really great, but we also met our birth family there. So it's awesome because we saw our real birth mom, the stepfather. We don't know who our real father is, but we also saw our half sisters, and it was a great experience. So
Oh my gosh.
we're gonna be in that book. That's why I mentioned earlier we're probably gonna be in the good side of the book, I guess you could say it, or the
Oh,
good experience.
wow.
So we had a good experience.
Bad experience. That's kind of why we're doing this, because I always felt bad. Hey, we had a good experience.
Yeah,
There's a lot of-
we're definitely more
there's a lot of
privileged than most
adoptees that had
people.
horrible experiences.
Yeah.
I think it's rare, but it was
Yeah.
just essentially we had a really good experience.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I actually met an adoptee that said that he met his birth family
Mm-hmm.
and found out that they're a really famous, rich
Really?
family in Korea.
Did he get any money?
No.
No, no.
But he said that they're like they're like
Are
millionaires.
they nice or no? No, I guess
But
that
they're
affects
like
him.
millionaires or whatever in Korea. They're super.
So
they're
why'd
like,
they get rid of him then?
because at the time that he was born, they were poor.
Oh, I see. Oh. So is he
But
in
but
connection
has
with them
like
or no?
He has like a twin brother or like a older brother or something that they chose to have.
Oh,
to
keep him?
keep.
Mhm.
And he was the youngest one, or no, I don't remember his story exactly, but he was somewhere along down the line, you know.
Mhm.
And they basically were given the option. Well, you can either keep this one or give this one, and, and he was the one that was given up.
Mhm.
But I think his like mother was a famous actress or something,
Oh,
or
really?
his father was a news anchor. I don't know, something crazy that like
Mhm.
that in this day that they're like really.
Is he in still contact with them or?
Yeah.
Oh, he is. That's good.
Yeah.
So have you heard about many KAD stories, or is this pretty
I've heard
familiar?
some cat stories.
Oh, you have.
I've heard. Actually, my friend Kim Stuckey.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, she has a different name now because she got married. But
What was her original name then? Or
Stuckey.
Oh, what was? Oh,
S-T-U-K-I.
I don't think I heard of that person.
Yeah, she's actually the president of AK Connection.
Oh, right now you mean?
Right, I think she is right now.
Oh, blonde haired, or is it my?
No, she's Korean.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Well, she might dye it blonde because I'm
Maybe
thinking.
she dyed it.
No.
Yeah, but like, what is her last name? I can look her up on Facebook. Oh, I'm taking a break from Facebook. I don't remember her married name, but she had a good experience with
Mhm.
uniting with her family.
That's good.
Like she goes to Korea all the time.
Have you been to AK Connection events or not
Long
recently?
time ago.
Oh, a long
But I
time
want to
ago.
go to more though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we're part of a kimchi club group that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why you're
Yeah.
still welcome there.
Yeah, actually, I'm planning on going this Sunday.
Oh, okay, sounds good.
2:00 on Sunday.
It's in
Egan.
Egan, so it's should be close
It's the
here,
whole
isn't it?
whole band in Egan, right?
Yeah, isn't this close to where you're at or not
Fairly
really?
close.
I know
Oh.
you have a lot of anxiety, but a lot of them have issues too, so you're not really alone.
Oh, I told you about my anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I keep getting you guys mixed up.
We don't look alike though.
I get your names mixed up.
Oh.
I keep thinking that you're Kyle and that you're Travis.
That's fine. Doesn't matter.
I'm
Doesn't
sorry.
bother me. No, it's fine.
Anyway. Yeah, I actually did go to that group once with Dana. I'm friends with Dana Jackson.
Mm-hmm. How long have you known her then?
Dana? Well, we
Yeah.
found out we're related. We're cousins.
No way, really? Third cousin or something, or
Like fourth cousins.
oh, fourth. So yeah, I assume you took the 23andMe test.
And I'm also cousins with Tam. What's her last name? Why am I having a hard time with memory? Tamika.
Don't know who that
What
is.
is her? I can't remember her last name. But I was friends with Tam. She's a Korean Adoptee. When she lived in Rochester, Minnesota. And I became actually friends with her.
Mhm.
Went down there to hang out with her and stay at her house and met her daughter and stuff. We hung out and we did a marathon together.
Mhm.
And then after I came back up to Minneapolis, I did a 23andMe and found out that she's my cousin.
Oh. So did you get any result on 23andMe, like close parents,
Nope.
or like
Only
dad?
my-
You
only-
you didn't. You mentioned your mom, but didn't your real dad ever wanted to? You don't know anything about your real dad, or?
Nothing.
Oh, I see. Yeah, neither do us.
Yeah, I just yeah.
So it's possible it was a previous relationship. Oh, so that's the and then maybe that's the reason why she doesn't want to open up is because
Yeah.
she doesn't want to open sore
I'm
wounds.
sure.
So it's really possible. But anyways, that's it. I think we have a good thing. Is there anything else or?